Well, I'm joined now by Patrick Rishe. He's the founder and president of Sports Impacts, a market research company that deals with sports at all levels. Welcome to our broadcast.
Thanks, Susan.
How do people really know that they can trust Infantino?
He's going to have to prove it. It's going to take time. And unfortunately, he's dealing with these massive issues that FIFA has dealt with in the last few years, losing roughly $550 million in their revenues over the next 4 years from lost sponsors like Emirates and Sony and Johnson & Johnson. He has a good track record with UEFA and his administration record there, so that's a start. But he has a mountain task in front of him in terms of reaching out and literally touching all these countries and sponsors, meeting with them in person to reverse how they currently feel about FIFA.
Does the money really tell the story? Is that how we know how badly the faith has been shaken amongst the organized football world?
Susan, I think it's a great indicator. Certainly, you're talking about one of the wealthiest organizations in the world, an organization that had built up considerable surpluses under Sepp Blatter's regime. But again, there was a lack of knowledge. A lot of that money came from sponsors, and sponsors clearly didn't know about a lot of the back deals that took place. Unfortunately, the politics and the commercial side led to some of the backroom deals that led to the scandal. So unfortunately, this has happened, but Gianni Infantino, now it's his job, along with the fact, Susan, they've got a 35-person council. They're trying to make more of a commitment to have women on this council. So when he goes across the globe reaching out to nations and also to sponsors, he needs to bring some of those folks with him strategically to try to help plead the case and make the case that indeed FIFA is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, you touched on that a second, but how will he actually rebuild FIFA?
Well, they've already started in terms of reforms, some very important reforms. Now, let me just list a couple of them, Susan. One of them is trying to keep a separation of the political side and the voting side from the commercial side. That's key. Secondly, there are term limits. So now the longest that someone can serve is 3 separate 4-year terms. So that's also critical. Sepp Blatter certainly didn't face that. But in addition to that, again, this 35-member council, so there's greater inclusion and also greater transparency. We're now going to know what these different executives are earning. All of these things, Susan, are going to at least push the process in the right direction. My biggest concern for Mr. Infantino is that because some of the legal matters are still ongoing, things that perhaps he had nothing to do with, there may be some more findings coming out in the next few months that are going to again paint FIFA in a negative light. But again, the reforms are moving in the right direction.
Sepp Blatter spoke out and said he's relieved that Infantino is taking over. What do you think of that, and what do you make of that?
You know, what can you say about Sepp Blatter at this point? If I were Gianni Infantino, I really wouldn't care whether or not Sepp Blatter was in my corner or not. Probably I wouldn't want him in my corner. I think Gianni Infantino, again, is his own man. He's been with UEFA since 2009. He's been involved in this financial fair play that has been tried to increase competitive balance across the European soccer leagues. He's expanded the inclusion in the European championships from 16 teams to 24 teams. So he has a lot of positive things, Susan, in his background, his track record. So what Sepp Blatter thinks of him, I'm sure he cares very little about. What he does care about is what do current and future sponsors think of his leadership.
All righty. Well, Patrick Rishe, we're going to have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, founder and president of Sports Impacts, joining us from St. Louis.